The fifth spirit of the Ars Goetia is Marbas. Now, I've had a pretty long and interesting history with Marbas, going back over a number of years now, and I've worked quite closely on certain health aspects, particularly since 2020 when we had the COVID thing going on. So I've got possibly quite a unique perspective of Marbas. Let's have a look at the Ars Goetia first, though, and see what it says in there. Marbas. The fifth spirit is Marbas. He is a great president, and appeareth at first in the form of a great lion, but afterwards, at the request of the master, he putteth on human shape. He answereth truly of things hidden or secret. He causeth disease and cureth them. Very strangely written. Again, he giveth great wisdom and knowledge in mechanical arts, and can change men into other shapes. He governs 36 legions of spirits, and his seal is this, which is to be worn as foresaid. And then it has the sigil there. So, quite a strange description, and some of it I think is obviously a lot more metaphorical. As I keep saying, when this comes up with other spirits, we can't physically change our shape. We can't change into an animal of choice. We can't, I can't do a ritual and have blonde hair and blue eyes. None of that stuff is possible. But we can astrally connect and change. And we can also do things like glamour magic and change how people perceive us. So Marbas is absolutely fantastic at that kind of work. But the health thing is what drew me to Marbas. When I first started working with him, it was down to an incredibly bad toothache, basically, and the NHS in the UK, the National Health Service, is, should we say, problematic. It's lacking in some areas, and I was in just unbearable pain. The NHS weren't particularly helping, and I was just sort of been given painkillers that weren't really doing anything. And I actually still have it. It's not traditionally, and in fact, I tried looking it up and I can't remember exactly what this crystal is, but I had this crystal with me. And then I now use this every time I work with Marbas. I had that crystal in my pocket for some reason, and I was sort of scrolling through my phone and just sort of out of desperation started to work with Marbas. I sort of, contacted him, laid on a hospital bed in a room at like 3:00 in the morning. And whether it's psychosomatic, whether it, we'll never know. I tend to lean a bit more towards that there was something supernatural happening. But the pain went away. I sort of, recovered after a couple of days, and then was able to see a dentist and had the tooth extracted. But because of that tooth, the infection, it was sort of spreading into my ears, into my jaw. I was having a really, really rough time, and it was, affecting me doing, just basic things. And then since then, I've sort of expanded this relationship out into, many other aspects. But Marbas is an incredible spirit to work with, and I can't really speak highly enough of him. So let's look at some of the correspondence for Marbas. So Marbas has been known by a couple of different names. Now, I'm going to refer to my notes because I've written a lot of this information down over the years, and it's a little bit much for me to remember it all from memory. So, Marbas has also been known as Barbas, Marbule, Barbule, Barphael, Barbiel, and Bariel. His planetary alignment is Mercury and Jupiter. His direction is east. He is an air spirit. Just very quickly on that, I do feel a massive connection with Lucifer, with Luciferian energy when working with Marbas. And they also work very, very well together as well. He's, the element of air. Colour, yellow or orange. Now you can see I have my main Marbas candle just there with the sigil painted on it. That is orange. I always associate orange with Marbas. In the tarot, he is the Six of Discs or Six of Pentacles. And other spirits that he works well with are Lucifuge, Astaroth, Molech. Spirits that I would avoid or seem to clash with him, Lilith. Lilith doesn't energetically seem to really work with Marbas. Again, I've mentioned this in other videos. There isn't, some kind of cinematic war going on where, some spirits are friends and some are enemies, and like it's not like that. But I always perceive it as sort of energetically, do these spirits work together? So Leviathan and Asmodeus doesn't work. For me, that just doesn't work, and that's probably because one is water, one is fire, and that doesn't really, go together. Lilith and Asmodeus work fantastically well. Anyway, I digress. In terms of incense, and this is just my experience because I've seen people say Storax, which Storax does work, but I tend to blend it with frankincense. Frankincense, if you can't mix both of them, then maybe just pick one. But I tend to blend them just for Marbas. Offerings, a very nice tea seems to be very happily accepted. So any of the sort of and something like a lapsang is what I tend to use, but chamomile is good as well. You don't always have to give offerings. I mean, for me, it's more symbolic. It's my sort of commitment. It's a symbolic gesture. And I find this with pretty much every spirit. The energy that you give, being present, that is sort of the key thing. I say it quite a lot in my videos. You can buy all of these expensive gifts and offerings and all of these things and lay them on the altar, but if you don't put the work in, if you don't put the effort in, you're just wasting your time and money as well. So I mentioned this crystal. I hope it shows up on camera. I genuinely cannot remember what it is. But sardonyx. Sardonyx is traditionally the crystal that you would use when working with Marbas. And how does Marbas appear? Well, he's one of the few spirits that actually sort of does pretty much fit the myth of, you know, what these spirits look like. He genuinely does appear as a man with a lion's head to me. That's pretty much how he always comes through. He really looks like, if you're old enough to remember, there was an 80s TV series, Beauty and the Beast, with Linda Hamilton, is it? Sarah Connor from the Terminator, and I've forgotten the actor's name, Ron Perlman, with this amazing makeup. He looks like that to me. He looks like a human cat. Energetically, how does he feel? Really, really warm, really kind. One of the nicest and most calming spirits to work with. Very supportive as well. Just a very calming energy. And I think it's important that, we sort of address the, these spirits are referred to as demons. Goetic demons at that. And it's always a nice experience to sort of break that bullshit of these spirits are dangerous, they're evil. I watched a TV series or film and they were portrayed this way. Why would you ever work with Pyman? I watched Hereditary, that was terrifying. Well, it's a film, it's not real. And Marbas, he was actually called Barbas, I remember, was one of the main villains for a time. Oh God, what was it called? Charmed. That pretty terrible TV show about 20 years ago. Marbas, although he was called Barbas, and it was, one of the main villains in that. When you actually sort of break through that and experience this kind of thing for yourself, it pulls all that away, whether it's, religious dogma, whether it's, just sort of fears that you've grown from watching films or what people have told you. It completely shatters that and you actually experience something warm and caring. Anyway, my point is that Marbas is one of the most important, for me personally, spirits that I've ever worked with, that has helped me over the years sort of break down those fears. But as soon as that energy comes through, and I'm sure you'll feel the same, you realise very quickly there is nothing to fear. This is kind and loving and warm. So let me go through some of the important aspects of Marbas. Now, healing, I've mentioned. Now, it does say in the Goetia that he can causeth illness and take away illness. And what I think that is referring to is a lot of these spirits, whether it's Marbas, whether it's Lucifer, Lilith, whoever, when they have such strong power to create, they can also destroy. And that's not a negative thing. It is something to obviously be cautious of, because you don't want to hurt yourself or hurt other people. But if you look at, say Lilith, for example, and she's a great spirit to work for with aspects of love, can she also be worked with to take away love? Yes, absolutely. So I hope that makes sense of, like, this power to create also is the power to destroy, to take away at the same time. So that's what I think that's referring to in the Goetia. Now, I mentioned it earlier very briefly, but glamour magic is also a very big aspect. But things like tarot, mind tricks, revealing hidden truths, all of those kind of sort of mental things is where Marbas absolutely excels. Now, one thing that Marbas is legendary for is bringing results incredibly quickly and very strongly, and I can absolutely attest to that. That is one of his aspects. When you build that relationship, those results can come so quickly, quicker than pretty much any other spirit that I've worked with. Now, just on the aspect of revealing hidden truths and imparting knowledge, that absolutely can mean that you, say a business partner you start to suspect maybe doesn't have the best interests and is maybe not being honest. Yes, you could work with Marbas for that truth to be revealed. But I think the more sort of interesting aspect is you can work with Marbas to reveal truths about yourself, things that you maybe don't know or have hidden about yourself. And that is, often sort of the subconscious, the aspects that are, sort of hidden, the shadow self, if you want to even call it that, things that you've suppressed. That's, I think, a much more interesting aspect. But yes, you absolutely can work with Marbas to have a truth revealed. Now, and I've seen a couple of other people that I respect and have a lot of time for, and they have a similar approach of how to do this. The way that I've done it in the past is, and obviously discernment is key here, you have to be conscious of not projecting what you think is happening or what you think the truth of a situation is. But you can invoke Marbas, you can, bring his energy in, you can connect with him. The way that I do it is to look through Marbas's eyes on the situation, and he can actually have that ability astrally to allow you to see a situation that is happening. I hope that makes sense, because I'm being a little bit cryptic. I don't want to reveal exactly, because I think it's a very personal thing, and that for someone to do that, then you should build that relationship first, and also do it in your own way as well. I think that's very important for magicians. But that's absolutely another key thing that Marbas is fantastic to work with. Now, one aspect of Marbas that may catch a lot of people off guard at first is how directly honest he is, particularly in matters of health. If you are struggling with health, you have something that needs treatment. This is kind of, I'm not criticising people, but it can often be almost self-inflicted. Certainly some of the things I've worked on with Marbas have been semi-self-inflicted, if you know what I mean. So you could have, say, health conditions where it's due to excessive weight, for example. Yes, help will be administered. Marbas will, push you in certain directions, but will also be honest. The root cause of this is you are eating too much food and not exercising. Absolutely not criticising people, but I'm just making it clear if that's kind of how it works. I will say as well, do not ever use any spirits, Marbas or otherwise, as a replacement for medical help. That's not how things work. It can work well coinciding, but don't ever not see a doctor or seek medical treatment and work with Marbas instead. Do not do that. That's not the right thing to do, and I would never recommend anyone doing that. Another aspect of Marbas is the mechanics of things. So what I mean by that is how things work, taking things apart, putting them back together. Very skilled processes like that, and I think that's where sort of the health element comes in as well, of how the human body works, because we are almost like this sort of complex machine that if one little thing goes wrong, it can have catastrophic results and be very complex. He can also be great for learning mechanics, so that could be to help with retaining information. It can be for studying. For example, I worked with a client to help them retain this information so they could pass their exams, and they did with flying colours, thankfully. But yeah, there's so many elements to Marbas that I could literally pick up my grimoire and read for an hour, which wouldn't be very interesting for anyone to watch. But I cannot recommend working with Marbas in so many different aspects. Health, yes, but also in legal aspects, in terms of studying, in terms of learning about yourself, in terms of astral projection, even. All of these things, and many more. Marbas is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope that you took something from this video, and hopefully you may feel encouraged to actually sit down and work with Marbas as well. Like, subscribe, the usual. Thank you for watching.